the opportunity to contribute to this discussion. I think what I wanted to remark is that the present time at which we find ourselves, I think, is a good reminder or illustration of the fact that despite our tendency to see enlargement primarily in institutional terms, the policy has always been and remains under the firm control of the member state. The EU's internal procedures for handling enlargement, which date back to the accession negotiation of 1969-72, are, well, almost exclusively intergovernmental in character. Therefore, despite the Commission President Juncker's visit to the region earlier this year, notwithstanding the tough love that we've heard about from the European Commission's recent or latest strategy for the region, and also despite the European Commission's recent recommendations for the opening of accession negotiations with Albania and Macedonia, the member states preserve the final say on all decisions related to regarding enlargement as an absolute and uncontested prerogative. In other words, while we might have actually read many of this year's gestures coming from Brussels as strong signs of a more consistent re-engagement between the EU and the region, the proof of that, I think, will actually ultimately be found in the national politics of enlargement. And halfway through 2018, where do we stand on that? So far, Bulgaria and Austria did adopt enlargement as a priority for their respective council presidencies, but there was no endorsement of the Commission strategy for the region by the member states. Then at the Sofia summit, Spain was a no-show on account of Kosovo. The conclusions refer to these countries as partners rather than countries, and the French President Macron chose the worst time possible to state the obvious, namely that EU internal reform and consolidation was necessary. Well, so much then for what we can expect from this June European Council, and also from the other high-level summit on the region, which is upcoming in a member state that is on its way out of the Union. Here, however, it is, I think, important to state that the position of the EU on enlargement should not be looked at in monolithic terms. The member states cannot be considered a single bloc any more than the countries of the region can be regarded as one entity. The national politics of enlargement obscures not only a myriad of national policy agendas, but also a multitude of different and quite specific reasons for any member state support or otherwise reservation towards enlargement. And these positions are also not fixed, but they're open to change over time. And the implication of acknowledging this is twofold. First, it renders the binary picture of the European polity as either in favor or against enlargement as neither very accurate nor actually very helpful in understanding reality. In reality, the EU as a whole is committed to the policy and no member state is opposed to enlargement. But while some member states may see a logic to expansion because of strong historic, social, business, economic links with the region, or because enlargement can help them to further their own ambitions and goals in the EU, other member states may worry about crime, about immigration, or about minorities at home above anything else. Individual positions of EU capitals become therefore enormously important for the overall success of the policy, because the attitude that member states eventually embrace can delay or can wreck the process. By departing from agreed conditions and procedures, and by allowing the process to fall hostage, for example, to specific disputes or to considerations that have more to do with the vagaries of domestic politics in the member states rather than with the situation on the ground in the Balkans, enlargement can lose steam, can lose credibility and leverage. And we have seen this actually playing out over and over again in the Balkans these past years. This brings me to a second and related implication, which has to do with the fact that the right balance between incentives and conditions becomes ever more difficult to strike when individual member states decide to diverge in functional terms. Strategic security interests can take priority over democratic promotion and call for a rapid integration of the region, but this actually ignores that democracies are the most suitable polities to solve security and state-building problems. Conversely, the quest for the democratic transformation of the Balkan countries demands strict application of conditions so as to prevent a premature accession. But this again undermines the risks of letting countries in limbo on the EU track or dragging the process indefinitely. So far, I think the EU has been struggling to reconcile, the EU member states, that is, have been struggling to reconcile its different priorities in the region, and this has had at least two counterproductive effects. The first one, it has, as Toby has mentioned, facilitated a deterioration of democratic standards throughout the region and has led to the consolidation of strongmen at the helm of different Balkan countries. And second, because time is of the essence, we can go maybe into detail about each of those during the discussion. Second, it has made it easier for other actors, most notably Russia, to meddle in the region and to score points in the overall tug of war with the West. So from this perspective, the present time, I think, with the pending decisions on Albania and Macedonia's membership bids, first and foremost, is not only a reminder of all the risks and weaknesses of the EU's tired enlargement policy towards the Balkans, but also a chance to prove that past lessons have been internalized, that the current enlargement momentum is real, that the EU can strike the right balance between incentives and conditions despite domestic politics and despite the upcoming EP elections, and that it can deal a blow to negative external interferences in the region. It is hard to imagine, I think, how the Balkans will stay on track if the member states fail to rise to the occasion now and reassure the Balkan countries that their recent efforts and their recent political courage have not been in vain. So I think I will stop here, but happy to elaborate on all of these points in the discussion.
All right, well, thank you very much.